by the third one-armed swordsman film, the new one-armed swordsman film, the women are no longer important. So in fact, there was one scene in which a woman walked together with the two men, and she doesn't walk in the middle. She walks in the side, holding onto the empty sleeve.
你们就不理我了？
来，抓住我袖子。
蕾蕾，我从来就没见你笑过。
So it's a very, very obvious sexual connotation in there, and also very, very important that women are no longer important. There is no argument. What is important is me and my pal, in my man friend. But of course, we also have to go back to the tradition in martial arts in which there is the popular belief that to be a good martial artist, you have to stay away from women. I mean, you either have to literally castrate yourself, like in the swordsman films, when Bridget Lin plays a man, a castrated man, or also the eunuchs in the King Hu films. For example, Robert De Niro in Raging Bull, he was abstained from sex before his fight. It is universal in the sense that being with a woman dilutes a man's power. And also that anger towards older people, towards the older generation, was very clear in the third one-armed swordsman. There is friendship between young people. There is none between old people, or between young and old people. Young people are naive and honest, while old people are scheming and bad. By that time, Chang Cheh himself had reached fulfillment of his career, so his anger was no longer channeled into the Wang Yu type of character who was mad at life, but instead, who was also, a little bit even like Lo Lei's character in Magnificent Trio, who was saying that, I am such a skilled fighter, yet I have nothing, I cannot do anything. And yet they are mad at life or society. But by the new one-armed swordsman, the object of their anger have become more concrete. Old people, who kind of use all kinds of schemes to dominate them. Foreigners will not be able to understand the film as much as we do because we grew up with those stories. We are familiar with those stories and we're familiar with those characters. But there is always something universal about this kind of characters, the outlaw characters. In many ways, there are many Billy the Kids in Chang Cheh movies. So Water Margin is exactly that kind of story about poor people who were not able to make a decent living, leading ordinary law-abiding lives. So they have to become outlaws or to make a living. And that's the kind of reason that this story remained popular throughout Chinese history, because they always tapped into that Chinese resentment of corrupt officials and a corrupt system that favors the rich people and the powerful people. In my mind, is Chang Cheh experimenting with things? Because if we see in the Chang Cheh films of the 70s, he was trying all kinds of different things. And he was given the chance. I mean, he was making 5 or 6, 7 or 8 films a year. And needless to say, when you make that many films a year, many of them are very, very raw and shoddy. But there's always that energy in there. We have to consider that he was making all these films and he didn't care that much because those films were making money. I mean, we have to remember that. The audience were buying it, the audience were eating it up, the audience loved it. So that's why he was making 8 films a year and each and every one of them made money. In the same year, he was also making a lot of youth films that were set in modern times, about, which are kind of like James Dean takeoff. David Chang is definitely a character was modeled after James Dean. My favorite are his early martial arts films. I find them very interesting, both dramatically and aesthetically, and also thematically, and also historically too. But those later films, I think he was in cruise control. I mean, to use American parlance, because he has made so many films. He was becoming bored by filmmaking. It's obvious.